Hello and welcome to this pattern recognition video featuring puzzles that were played in games by beginners rated 1000 to 1200. So if you're higher rated than that, hopefully this will just be a good review. And if you're a beginner, see how you do in these puzzles. And let's start here. We have the queen had just, I believe, captured something here. And if we look at material, I believe it's even. So we both have 7 pawns and the bishop pair, 2 rooks, and a queen. So what can white do here to gain an advantage? What tactic is there? And if you're new to pattern recognition, basically you want to solve a set of puzzles and do them multiple times. That way you don't just forget the tactics that you see and learn as you do them. All right, so what do we have here? You want to look for checks, captures, and threats in that order. And I don't see any good checks against the opponent. Captures, you want to make sure that there isn't, especially beginners, a piece that's just left hanging there where you can capture it for free. You also want to look for pieces that are unprotected. And there are a few unprotected pieces in our opponent's camp. It looks like this rook and this rook. So maybe there's a way we can take advantage of that and pause the video at any time if you need to think longer. If not, hopefully you figured this one out. You want to look, as I said, at checks first, as they're the most forcing, then captures, which will help you to look around the board and see if anything's unprotected, especially this rook here. And then you want to look at threats. So checks, captures, and threats in that order. And a good threat would be to push this pawn, attacking the queen, and then also a discovered attack on that bishop, which is unprotected, and it looks like we can grab it for free. So we go there, then we pick off the bishop, or excuse me, use the bishop to pick off the rook for free. All right, on to puzzle number 2. Okay, we want to, first ask ourselves, what was the reason behind our opponent's move here? Why did they do that? And this is an interesting endgame puzzle. It looks like material is perfectly even here. But what is the way for black to move forward and gain an advantage? Let's see. Well, in the end game, for beginners that aren't familiar with this, you want to try and gain the opposition against your opponent's king, which we have here. There's one odd square in between these 2 kings here. And because of that, if there are no moves available for white, like if he moves this pawn, we can just take this pawn for free. So he doesn't want to do that. He could maybe push this. So that's a possibility. But if we could drive that king back and gain ground, that might give us an advantage. Maybe we can move up here and start picking pawns off and try and get ours promoted. But we have to find the best move first. So what do you think here? All right, as always, pause if you need to. You want to look at checks first. So the only check is to go here. And how can our opponent respond? When a king is in check, there are 3 options: capture the checking piece, block, or run. So here you can't block if the pawn is here and they're 1 square away from each other. So if we go there, they can capture. If they capture, then we can recapture. And now the king would be forced to move away. So let's see if that works. If we go there, capture, capture, the king is in check and has to move away. Maybe he backs up here. And then it looks like we can just capture, they capture, and then we can grab the opposition from our opponent. I think that works. So let's try this. We go there, capture with check. Now, probably we want to drive them back even further. But if we do that, if we push here, and also you want to try and solve this all in your head as much as possible before you start playing moves like this and getting the answer. Because the more calculation you can practice in your head, the better. That'll help you figure this out, in an actual game when you can't take your moves back. So let's see here. We don't want to take, or they would just capture. So if we push the king forward, he's probably going to go there. But then if we go here, he can just step forward. So what am I missing here? Maybe we step forward first. Then if they capture, we capture, but then he can push forward here. Well, if he does that, then we just capture with our pawn. So, this one turned out to be a little trickier than I thought. So the other option is to take, but if they take with the king, we have to go here. He could push forward with this pawn. We could take. He takes. Sorry, then we grab the opposition. I know this is a lot. So this could go either way. I think if we take, he could go here. Or take with this pawn instead. Then if we go here, we would be able to move up the board. So if we go there, so this is another problem. So especially if there are beginners out there and you're thinking about going into an all pawn endgame, they can be very complicated, more than they look at first. So really think twice before you go into an all pawn endgame, because there can be a lot of calculation involved, more than meets the eye, I guess. Let's see. If we push there, I mean, he was probably going to go there. Then if we go here, he can just grab the opposition by going there. So I think we have to take. No, they don't like that. So the other option is to go there. They don't like that. What am I missing here? They want us to go there? Oh, okay. Did I overlook that they can go there? Or they can't go there? All right, yeah. Yeah, so now we're winning. All right, and that's what I was saying. There's a lot more calculation with these all pawn endgames than it looks at first. All right, on to the next puzzle here. The queen has just captured this pawn, and the bishop cannot take because of the pin by the rook on our king. So we are behind in material, or are we? They have 3 pieces for that queen. So I guess we're down a pawn now. Or is it about even? No, we're down a pawn. The equivalent of a pawn. Okay. Well, what can we do? We have this lined up here. So we look for checks first. I mean, this pops out right away. If we go there, the bishop is preventing the king from running to the center. So he's forced to capture. And then we can deliver check. They'll have to block. And then we capture with mate. So check and mate. All right, hopefully you found that one. On to the next puzzle. Okay, puzzle number 4. We just had a capture. We're in check, so we pretty much have to capture there. And it looks like it's going to be a pawn race, which I think we should win, because this is important. you'll learn about the square of the pawn. Okay, we have to capture. Then there's going to be a race, and I'll tell you about the square of the pawn, which is important here. Okay, to to look at the square of the pawn, you take a pawn that you might want to push forward here and try to promote. Well, from here, you draw a diagonal line up to that king, or well, up to the edge of the board, not the king specifically, and then you make a square out of it. So we have this square. As long as the king is in the square, he'll be able to get to that pawn and stop it. But what happens if we jump 2 moves here? Because the pawn can go 1 or 2 on the first move. So now the square of the pawn is much smaller, and the king will not be able to get into that square and stop it. Because if it goes here, of course, it won't be able to get there or get to the pawn. So let's take a look at that. And the pawn will promote, and you'll be winning easily with that queen. All right, on to puzzle number 5. What do we have here? The rook just captured our rook. It's attacking our queen. Material. We have 6 pawns. Our opponent only has 4, so we're up 2 pawns. But now we're down a rook, I believe. If they captured a rook there. So if we look at checks first, as they are the most forcing, what checks do we have? Well, our queen could go here, or even here. But here it would be captured. So maybe we go here, delivering a check. And then what? The only square the king can go to is in the corner. And we could attack again by dropping our queen down here. We have the bishop covering there. So I think that's the way to go. So we go here with check. The king is forced into the corner. And then we can continue checking with the queen. But, you don't want to check just because you can. You want to make sure you have a good follow-up series of moves that lead to a checkmate or some winning advantage, material maybe. Okay, so that looks to be best. It's a forcing move. The king has to go into the corner. And now what do we do? So with the king in the corner, we could attack again with check by going here. But then the king can only go there. And it looks like we can attack with our rook then. So that's what I'm going to try. Here we go. There, there. And they don't even go any further because now the king can only go here, and then our rook will deliver a check. Oh, but it can be blocked. Let's see. Make sure I'm not missing something. All right, so the king has to go there. Once we check, they can block, but then we could take, grabbing the bishop. If they take with the rook, then we grab that too, and we're ahead in material then. All right, on to puzzle number 6. What do we have here? Let's check it out. The rook kind of dropped back, and it's really restricting our king, threatening an attack here with the rook, or maybe the queen. But it's not looking too good there. All right. Since it's our move, what can we do here? Well, we have checks all along, well, not all along the back rank. If we go here, the rook could capture our queen. So what is the best way to go here? And what's strange is, oh, never mind. I was wondering why they didn't attack that bishop, but our queen is covering that as well. So, all right, here we go. So this is a good little pattern. We move up here, delivering a check to the king. The king has to go here. Then we drop all the way down with our queen, checking again, but we're also forking the king and the rook here. So check, check, then we can just grab the rook. All right, on to puzzle number 7. So the queen steps forward. What is happening in this position? Targeting an unprotected pawn. Also adding pressure to this knight along with the rook. So what do we have? Any checks? Well, if we go here, we'll just be captured by the king, and I don't see a good follow-up. Maybe we grab their knight first. Okay, so if we go with the system of looking at what our opponent just did, they moved the queen. Why did they do that? And since they did that, it's piling up on our knight. So that looks to be the threat. Oh, also, there could be a future attack on this rook for back rank mate threats. So now we want to ask ourselves, what checks, captures, and threats do we have? And you can look at the material as well. By doing that, you can tell if you're ahead or behind, and that'll help you decide if you should be trading pawns or pieces. So if we have 5 pawns, they have 6. We're down a pawn, and the rest of the material is even. So that means we should try and trade pawns, unless we have some winning attack that is more important than that. They want to try and trade off pieces. So I don't see any immediate checks that look winning, but I don't know. I was wondering if we go there, he takes. If we go here, it delivers a check, and that cannot be captured because of this pin. I think that works because then we can just go ahead and grab the rook here. All right, so we're going to capture, then check, and the fork works here because of this pin. All right, on to puzzle number 8. Pawn is just pushed forward. If we look at the material, we have 2 pawns. They have 3, so we're down by 1 pawn. And now they're threatening to capture our rook. And I had a great recommendation by a viewer who said, and that reminds me, feel free to leave comments, and you can put in requests if there's something you'd like to see in future videos, or anything else on your mind. Just leave some comments. But I had a great comment by a viewer saying that when I go through and analyze these puzzles, I should ask, what is a piece that moved not doing anymore? So this pawn, once it moves, what is it not doing anymore? Well, before it was blocking the path of this rook. So now that pawn is moved, things are different. The line of the rook is open and it's targeting our rook. So you definitely want to look at what changes in the position happen after your opponent's move. what was different now, or what is different now than how the position was before, and what is the purpose behind your opponent's move. So our rook is under attack. What should we do about that? Well, one thing we can do is just start attacking the king. Because now the rooks, they're attacking one another. Not only are they attacking our rook, we're attacking theirs. So if we could drive this defender, the king, away from that rook, maybe that would be a winning move for us. So if we attack with the pawn, put them in check, they can only go here to protect that rook. Well, then we could bring the other pawn up and check again, and there's no way to stay there and keep guarding that rook. So I think that's the way to go. And now we can just grab that extra rook there, and we should be winning easily with an extra rook for their pawn. Okay, on to puzzle number 9. So what do we have here? Let's see. Pawn, just captured. Did open up the king. So if we look at checks first, hopefully you'll find the winning move. So it looks like we can just go here. Remember, when a king is being attacked or put in check, the 3 options are capture, block, or run from the attacker. And if none of them can be done, then it's a checkmate. So here we have a check. Nothing can capture that queen. The king can't run anywhere because of this bishop. So he'll have to block. Now, of course, if we check, the knight doesn't want to block here, or we'll just take it and it'll be checkmate. So once we go here, he'll have to block this way. But then we can move our bishop down here, and that'll lead to a mate. There's no way to stop that. All right, the final puzzle, puzzle number 10. I hope you've done well with these so far. And remember, try to do as many puzzles as you can, especially for beginners out there that want to improve their game. Tactics are probably one of the main areas that beginners lose games in. They just overlook a tactic and lose a piece or get checkmated. All right, so and play regularly. That also helps you to make less blunders, because as you play more, you'll see things more, and hopefully improve. And try and look over your mistakes that you make in your games, and try to hopefully not do those again. Okay, king a step forward because of this check. So now we do have a possible check there. And if the king steps forward, we can mate. But if we go there and the king steps to the side, then we're going to send that king running. We could go there. He doesn't want to block with his rook, or we'll take. So he'll have to run here. Wow. And then maybe we can attack the king again, over here somewhere, and try and force him away from the defense of his queen. Is that even okay? Maybe there's something less complicated here that I'm overlooking. Oh, well, no. Okay, hold on. I think that's the way to go. King will probably go there. All right, then we go there. Now where? Now what do we do? The king will have to go forward, and he doesn't want to go here. So if he heads that way, I think, okay, to keep the video and from running too long and to try and wrap it up, I'm just going to go ahead and make this move, and then go there. And instead they just give up the queen. All right, so I'm going to pull up the analysis for this one and see what would have happened if they just started running. So in the puzzle, we had this move by our opponent, which is a losing blunder. So we go here, and in the game, they go there, we check, and they took our rook, but it says that's the best move. Now we saw that they do not want to go here or it'll be a mate. So what happens if they go there? Well, it looks like the best way forward is check, and this is a mate in 3. King to d5 or king to c6. All right, if they go here to d5, then what do we do? King to d5, rook to d7. I mean, I guess I might as well show you. King to d5, rook to d7. That forces the king back up to here, and then we can deliver this mate. And this is a good pattern. When you check with the queen on one of the corner squares around the king, it covers 2 sides and the diagonal. The only thing not covered are the 2 opposite squares on the sides, in the middle of these 2 sides. As long as those are covered, it would be a mate. All right, well, I better wrap it up there so this video doesn't go too long. As I mentioned, feel free to leave comments, like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, and have a super chess day.